All right. Hello, everyone. Hi. We're coming to you live from TCU today. This is our second one in this series. We have a third one coming up. We did one last week. A big shout out to everyone at TCU watching this. Today, we are teaming up with the TCU dietitian students. Say hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
And they're going to be teaming up with us here at Yumlish. We're going to be doing this delicious burrito bowl cooking demonstration. Again, coming to you live from TCU. These dietetic students have put this delicious burrito bowl together for you. So what we're going to do a couple of things. So one, if you're watching right now, hit like on this live stream, and also comment down below what you are doing. So if you are cooking, if you're cooking along with us, if you are doing something else that's completely random and unrelated, that's absolutely fine. Tell us what you are doing. Interact with us. Let us know that you're watching. Tell us how you like this recipe as we go along cooking it. If you are cooking along with us, make sure to use the hashtag YumlishLive. So make sure to tag that across any social media channel that you're on. Make sure to tag us at YumlishLive. So today we're going to be handing it off to the TCU students again, bringing you this live event of this delicious lean and green burrito bowl that's coming to you. And they're going to walk us through this recipe, ask as many questions as you want. They're up for it. So let's challenge them a little bit. Let's see what they're learning at school. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over. Welcome, y'all. Tell us a little bit about yourselves.
All right. Thank you for coming to our cooking demo today. I'm Catherine.
I'm Cindy.
My name's Jason.
And we will be making a healthy burrito bowl. So today's theme is leaner and greener cooking, which means we're going to be swapping out a few ingredients in a classic burrito bowl and then adding a few in to make it healthier, greener, and leaner. So to start off, we have all of our items that we'll be using placed on the table. There's a French word called mise en place. This means everything in its place. So we've got all of our seasonings measured and put out. We have our chicken cut. We have all of our vegetables measured and washed. So this is just going to make it a lot more easy and organized when we're starting our cooking. So I'm going to turn it over to Jason and Cindy.
Absolutely. Thank you, Catherine. So today's recipe is all about greener and leaner cooking, like Catherine said. Today we're going to be making some swaps and some substitutions to make this recipe a little bit more diabetes healthy. So we're going to be cutting down on saturated fat, we're going to be cutting down on sodium, and we're going to be adding a ton of fiber. So the first thing that we're going to do today is to make our spice blend that's going to be going on our chicken. So if we can get in here. So so we have our chili powder here in this first bowl. Got some paprika and cayenne. I'm going to mix that in there. And there's no sodium in this spice blend that we're putting together now, so no salt is going to be added in. But then we got our cumin. We're going to throw some in there, about a half a teaspoon. And then we're going to get our garlic and our onion powders in there. Garlic and onions have good antioxidant properties as well as no sodium. So we're going to mix up our spice blend now, make it a nice, easy, no sodium taco seasoning. And of course, you can add a little bit of sodium to taste if that's your preference, but in the pursuit of healthy swaps and changes, we're not adding any salt to our seasoning today. So now that we got our seasoning, we're going to go ahead and put all our chicken in a large mixing bowl, and we're going to get it all seasoned up. So we got all our chicken in our bowl now. We're going to throw in our no sodium seasoning. I like to do about half of it at first, kind of mix it in a little bit, get a nice even spread on everything, and then get the other half in there afterwards so that everything's nice and even mixed together. So now that's all spread out, throw the other half in there. We got about a pound of chicken in here. We're using chicken breast today. It's a very lean protein. We're looking at about 35 grams of protein for about 184 calories. So really lean protein option. Lower in saturated fat as well with the leanness. So compared to like a 70% ground beef, this is definitely a less fat option. So Our chicken's looking nice and seasoned now. Everything all even up. So now we're gonna go ahead and go over here and throw it on our skillet.
So if we can move the camera a little bit, yeah, thank y'all.
Awesome, yeah.
We
So now we're gonna go over. So we're gonna put a little bit of grease in our pan. Today we have our olive oil, which is a monounsaturated fat. We're using this instead of butter to oil our pan because a monounsaturated fat is gonna have some heart health benefits. So we get our olive oil in there. Kind of just let it spread out across the pan so we don't get anything sticking. Again, that's a monounsaturated fat in the olive oil, so that's very heart healthy and a good choice.
Can I ask you to move that pot out of the way so we can see clearly?
Yes. So now we're just going to get our chicken in the pan. Try to spread it out nice and evenly so everyone has their own place on the surface. And again, we're using a very lean protein with the chicken breast, as well as a no sodium seasoning for the taco seasoning. So this is going to be a great option for healthy, diabetes-friendly burrito bowls. But now that we got all this chicken on the pan, we're just going to go ahead and let that start to cook, and we're going to pass it over to Cindy, and she's going to tell you a little bit about our vegetables and our other fibers.
All right, so our next big ingredient in this burrito bowl, we have rice. So the original recipe actually called for white rice, and we decided to swap that out for brown rice. And the reason why is because brown rice is a whole grain, whereas white rice is a refined grain. And so a whole grain is still going to have all its parts to the grain kernel, so we still have all of those nutrients, specifically really high in fiber, whereas the refined grains, they have most of the components of the grain stripped off, and we're left with this starchy, carbohydrate-rich component. So we have our brown rice right here. If you can see, we decided to pre-cook it just to save us a little time. Although this really didn't take us much time because we did use instant rice, which came in a box. We literally just put it in a cup of water, mixed it in with a cup of rice, let it boil, and then we just let it simmer for about 5 minutes. So it was very quick, very easy. You can choose to buy the dry rice version, which comes in a bag. That tends to be cheaper, but it will take a little longer to cook. So up to you if you want a cheaper option and you may have a little bit more time to cook it up, or if you want just something a little bit more convenient, you can choose the instant rice option. But we have it all cooked here, and basically the only thing we're going to do to the rice once you have your rice cooked is we're going to add in some cilantro. So I have my cilantro right here, and we cut off the stems, but you don't have to, you don't want to. All of the cilantro is edible. So basically what I'm doing here, just to kind of let you know what I'm doing, is I'm making kind of like a claw with my hand, making sure my fingertips are tucked in. And that's just, you know, in case the knife gets too close to the hand, it's going to brush against my nails as opposed to chopping off my finger. So just keeping that in mind, we really want to be safe when chopping up vegetables and anything for that matter. So you really just want to chop up the cilantro as small as you want. It's a preference right here. But I typically want it pretty small. So once I finish chopping it up, I just kind of bundle it up together, and then I just give it a little extra chop to make the pieces a bit smaller.
And then, Cindy, while you chop that up, just a quick reminder to everyone watching right now, if you have a question about what we're cooking, about the marination on the chicken, about all the different ingredients that are going into the rice, drop them right there in the comments box. Interact with us. Let us know what you think about this recipe, what you would do differently in this recipe, the substitutions, what do you think about the substitutions that are being made to make this recipe a little extra healthy. Let us know. Again, drop your comments, drop your questions in the chat box below, and make sure to hit like, share it, share this feed out into Facebook, and go ahead and do that as we go through this recipe. And again, keep dropping your questions in. We will ask questions as we're going along here cooking. And then again, at the end, we have a dedicated Q&A section. So start putting your comments in now.
Yes, please do ask questions. We would love to answer them for you guys. So now that that's chopped up, I just added into the rice. And then in addition to the cilantro, I'm gonna add in about a teaspoon of salt. Just half a teaspoon actually, so not even a teaspoon. So we're not using too much salt in this recipe, as Jason kind of talked about, which is a good practice to just kind of do with everyday cooking. Try to reduce salt as much as possible. That is going to help with, reducing blood pressure and just overall a lot healthier for the heart. And one way that you can reduce salt intake is just replacing some of that salt with some fresh herbs like cilantro or some other herbs and spices that you may have laying around in the house. But if you don't like cilantro, which I completely understand, you either love it or you hate it, it's totally fine to leave it out. You want to customize this recipe to your liking. You can always just leave it out, or you can replace it with another herb, or maybe just add in some lime juice in there to make up for the flavor. You can really just play around with the ingredients until you just figure out what works for you. And so I'm just giving that a nice stir. And so that's her rice. That's done. Just gonna leave that to the side for now. And so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna finish chopping up our vegetables. So I already pre-chopped some of our vegetables just to save us a little bit of time. But Jason's gonna add these in a second here to the pan with the chicken to get those cooking. So I have some bell pepper. I have a red bell pepper, and I also cut up an orange bell pepper. And then I have a purple onion. And so just keeping a reminder with our knife skills, making that claw, making sure our fingers are nice and tucked. And we're just gonna cut them up into strips. And so just a little tip when cutting up an onion, you want to keep this hairy end of the onion intact. And so you don't want to chop that off, because that's going to prevent the onion from falling apart once you start cutting it up. And so it makes chopping up an onion a lot easier.
And then, Catherine, if you can pull the camera a little bit closer so we can see those nice scales on the onion there.
Yeah. And so with the red onion, you can really use any color onion that you'd like. We just decided to go with the red just to make it a little bit more colorful. If you guys attended last week's Yumlish session, you would have learned a lot about eating the rainbow and how the different colors are really important to your health and like the different nutritional benefits that they provide. So if you haven't watched that, I encourage you to do so. It was very, very interesting to watch. But that's kind of what we kept in mind when choosing out our vegetables. It's just really be mindful of color to make sure that we're getting in all of those good nutrients. So I'm just finishing off chopping up this bell pepper. We're cutting them up in strips as well. And so when that's done, you're just gonna go ahead and add them into the pan with your chicken so that they can finish cooking as well. Gonna go ahead and pass that over to Jason.
Thank you, Sandy. So right now we're looking at our chicken. We're doing an internal temperature check, and we're looking about right. You want to look at it for an internal temperature of 165 degrees for chicken for food safety purposes. So now that we got a couple, we're going to check a couple different pieces just to make sure. We're looking pretty good here, so I'm going to put that away. Now that our chicken's looking nice and done, show that nice and close. Looks pretty good. So we're going to throw the vegetables in with it and let all those flavors mingle and hang out together for a little bit before we assemble this burrito bowl. So, y'all, I got this on about a medium to low heat right now, just so our chicken stays nice and juicy. But we're just going to start throwing everything together, mixing it up, letting all the veggies get on the bottom of the pan so they can get some searing and some cooking on them. Y'all, just look at how much veggies we got in there, and look at all that color too. That's how you know you got a lot of phytochemicals. I don't know if Sandy mentioned it to y'all, but the red bell pepper and the orange bell pepper are different stages of ripeness in the bell pepper's life cycle. So the more red it gets, the more carotenoid and vitamin A is in there. So with our red pepper here, we got a lot of vitamin A. Our onions in here have a lot of antioxidant properties. And it's all smelling fantastic too, you guys. If you're cooking along with us, you're definitely gonna enjoy what you're smelling.
And again, just a quick reminder, if you have a question about this recipe, if you're just joining us on this live stream, if you have a question about this recipe, if you have a comment about this recipe, if there are certain things that you do differently in this recipe, please drop it in the comments below. We are taking your questions as we're cooking along. So if you do have a question, if it's coming to mind, don't worry about holding on to that question till the end. You can throw it in the chat box below, in the comments below, and we'll keep answering them as we're going. Now, Jason, I do have a question for you. So you mentioned some of the nutrients in there, right? So specifically about onion, talk to me about what kind of nutrients are we talking about there?
So the onion has a lot of antioxidant properties, and we were just talking about this in our cooking class last night. Cindy, why don't you help me out? What was the name of the antioxidants from the onion?
I don't remember exactly the name, but onions just in general are very like healthy vegetable, as all fruits and vegetables. Going back to like eating the rainbow and what the last week's Yumlish demo group talked about, every single color is going to have their own beneficial properties. So this purple onion, very helpful with the antioxidants like Jason was mentioning, but white onion and yellow onion, they're all going to be just as beneficial because they're each going to have their own set of vitamins and minerals and antioxidants. So as long as you're getting in your fruits and veggies, either way, just as nutritious and healthy.
And are you trying to get a glaze on the onions? Like how long are you thinking about, even the bell peppers? How long are you thinking about?
As we look at our pan here, you can see that the onions are kind of getting a little bit more yellow and getting a little bit of a translucency to them. So that's what you're looking for, is when they get that translucent look and they start to get a little bit of caramelization, I guess would be the word. But we're looking pretty close to done. I would say only another minute or two on these.
Okay.
Everything's starting to cook down as well. It looks like a smaller pile of stuff now. It's starting to reduce a little bit.
And is that because as you're cooking it, the water starts evaporating? Like, is that what? Okay. Okay.
And if you do prefer your vegetables a little softer, you can cook them in a different pan and cook them down a little bit more. Ours are going to be just a little bit crunchier. That's what we're going for today, but that's a personal choice, and you can totally do two different pans, cook them a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want your vegetables to be a little bit softer, you can have them starting on a different time than your chicken instead of cooking everything together. But this way it's easier to demo for you guys and show you how easy cooking can be for yourself, even healthy cooking.
Yes.
And so what makes this recipe lean and green? Like why did y'all pick that title for this? What exactly makes it lean and green?
So we basically just made a lot of swaps to the original burrito bowl recipe that you might get like at Chipotle or a Tex-Mex restaurant. So the reason why it's greener, by green we just mean adding in more vegetables. Not necessarily the color green, as you see we have a lot of colors. We decided to add in vegetables like bell peppers and onion, which weren't originally on the recipe. So we added that in to increase the fiber content as well as vitamins and minerals. And then going back to like the swaps, we swapped out the white rice with the brown rice to increase fiber. We swapped out ground beef. Ground beef was actually the meat that was on the recipe, but because it is a red meat, it tends to be higher in saturated fat, which is something that we don't want to consume too much of just for heart health. And so we swapped it out with a leaner option like chicken breast. And so we did that. And then also, which you'll see once we get to assemble the bowl, you'll see the different toppings that we kind of swapped out for healthier alternatives. So you'll see a bunch more swaps that we made to the bowl.
Okay.
And so while the veggies are cooking down, I kind of just want to talk about our next staple ingredient for the bowl, which are some beans. And so here we have some black beans, but you can use any type of bean that you'd like. They could be pinto beans, or maybe you want to try kidney beans, whatever you prefer. But we chose black beans, and these were canned black beans. And when it comes to canned foods, just a tip is to choose cans that say reduced sodium or lower in sodium, just because canned products in general are going to be higher in salt. And so that's a way that we can reduce our total salt intake. But if they don't have reduced sodium available at your store, buying the original is fine. We just recommend rinsing out the beans, making sure we're getting rid of that excess salt. And even if you do buy the reduced option, we still recommend rinsing it out just to get any extra salt that may still be on there. So that's what we did. We rinsed them out. And beans is one of my favorite things to have lying around in the house because they're so cheap, first of all, but also they're just very nutritious. They're going to contribute to the fiber content along with the whole grain rice. And in addition to fiber, they're going to be full of protein. So beans are considered plant-based protein. So we have our animal-based protein, which is the chicken, but then we're also adding in our plant-based protein with the bean. And with plant-based protein, a way that we can make it complete, just like animal-based proteins are complete, plant-based proteins need to be paired up with another type of plant-based protein to make it complete, a complete protein. And so with that, we're combining it with the rice because a complete protein with plant-based options would be a grain combined with a legume. So beans are considered a legume, along with peanuts, lentils, chickpeas are a legume as well. And so when you pair up a legume with a grain, like whole grain rice, then you create a complete protein. And so that's what we kept in mind when we were kind of putting the ingredients together for a bowl. So, and then again, same thing, like the rice, you can always buy the dry beans that come in the bag. Again, a lot cheaper, but they will take a bit longer to get cooking. But I mean, if you have extra time on your hands, you can always choose to do the dry beans, and you can more easily manage how much salt you're putting into your meal, which is always a good thing. And so the beans are ready to do.
Oh, look at that.
Our onions and our peppers are looking nice and translucent. They have a great smell, a great look to them. So we're going to go ahead and throw our beans on top.
Okay. Just throwing them in there.
That'll just help them to warm them up a little bit and let the flavors kind of mingle together a little bit more.
Yes.
Now, if someone is vegetarian and they cannot have the chicken, would you say that this is a complete meal in of itself with just the beans and then of course the veggies? Would that still be a complete meal?
Oh yeah, definitely. Going back to the complete protein. So even if we weren't adding the chicken, it'll be a complete meal because again we're pairing the grain, the brown rice, with the legume, with the beans. So they're together complementing each other and creating a complete protein. So totally fine if you're vegetarian. That's a good tip to keep in mind. Pairing up a grain with a legume. So another combination would be like whole grain bread with peanut butter would be a complete protein. So yes, still a complete meal.
And so we've got a couple of comments while we're transitioning this. We've got a couple of comments in the comment box here. So we got one from Anne, and Anne is saying, "I'm getting hungry." And also Kelly's asking, would you still use the seasoning mix without the meat?
Yeah.
I would, yes, because it will give just a nice flavor to the overall meal. And again, we weren't using any more salt on any other of the ingredients, so adding in that taco seasoning is really going to bump up the flavor either way. So yeah. All right. So now that we have our meat pretty much done, Captain is going to go ahead and assemble the bowl for us.
All right.
All right.
And if we can pull the camera closer into the bowl, that'd be great, so we can see what it's looking like in the bowl.
Of course. And I wanted to point out something that's great for losing weight or trying to cut back on the amount of food that you're eating is using smaller bowls. So if you can see right here, this bowl is a lot bigger than this bowl. So if I were to use a small bowl and fill it up to the top, I would feel a lot more satisfied at the end of my meal versus using a large bowl and only putting like half the amount of food in there and leaving a whole big gap up here. It kind of tricks your brain into thinking that you're fuller. So that's a fun trick. So I'm using a small bowl. And I'm going to add in, the base of the bowl is going to be a half cup of rice. So I'm using my clean measuring cups. I want to make it perfect. So half cup of rice. It looks delicious with the cilantro in there. And then we're going to try to do about 3 to 4 ounces of chicken. And a good rule of thumb, if you're trying to eyeball this, is like the size of a deck of cards. So I think maybe one more piece is going to make us 3 ounces of chicken. And I want to add in quite a few veggies. I want to get in all those nutrients. And also the beans. Okay. I need the cutting board. And then we're going to top this with a little bit of avocado. It's a really healthy fat. And also a fun fact is avocados have a ton of fiber in them. That's something that I learned recently. So you never really think of avocados having fiber, but they actually are a great source. So just very carefully, I'm going to cut it around this avocado and peel it apart. And I'm going to use this half. If you are using the half with the pit, just be really careful. Try to get it out with a knife. It's a lot easier to use this half, so I'm going to use this for the demo. We're going to put this on the cutting board, cut a few slivers, and I'm going to use about a quarter of this avocado. So about half of this half. And that's just going to give us some more color, nice healthy fat for our bowl. And then we're going to roll out the slime, make all the juices come out, cut it in half. I'm going to squirt this on our bowl. We got kind of a hard line, but I'm getting some juice out of there. And then we have some tomatoes. That's a good source of lycopene. And then we are also adding in jalapenos. That's totally optional. These are fresh jalapenos, so they're really spicy. So we're just going to add a few of those. And then the last thing is we have some non-fat Greek yogurt. So instead of topping our bowl with sour cream, we're going to use non-fat Greek yogurt. It's a better source of protein, and it has less fat than sour cream. So I'll just use this. Actually, do we have another?
You might have a tablespoon right here. Yeah, here's the tablespoon.
Perfect. So I'm using a tablespoon non-fat Greek yogurt. And that's it. Here's what it looks like.
Awesome. That looks so good. And I love the steam coming off the chicken. I bet it smells great in there.
It smells so good.
That's great. So again, just a quick reminder to everyone watching, drop your questions, drop your comments in. We're toward the end of this cooking demonstration. I do have a quick question for you. So tell us about the calories in this, the carbs in this recipe. How much does it cost to put this recipe together per serving?
Yeah, sure. So for carbohydrates, that's something that's really important with diabetes. So we use a half cup of rice in the base, and that's 1 serving of carbohydrate. So that's going to be about 15 grams of carbs. What else? You have
Quarter cup of beans is another about 10 grams.
Could you hear him?
Yeah,
So-
say that again.
With the quarter cup of beans, I'd say that's about another serving of carbs or so, and that's another good source of protein as well. I would say it's a low-calorie meal, especially without the avocado garnish, because that's like pretty high in fat. But you got your lean chicken, you got your lean beans, and you got your high-fiber brown rice. So those are all good options.
So we have around like 45 grams of carbs coming from the beans, and then we have the rice, and then the rice, the beans. The price per serving was around $2.57 without the topping. So we just wanted to show you guys what you could substitute for the original toppings. But it's a lot cheaper than getting a bowl of Chipotle, just saying. But and then you have a lot more left over that you can just prep and put in the fridge and then take out when you're in a hurry, and you have a healthier version of a burrito bowl. So I highly recommend it. Does smell pretty delicious in here.
Okay, so last question for you. When you're talking about the meal prep, how long can this stay? Like, is this my week-long meal prep? Is this good for a couple of days? How long are we talking about? What's the shelf life on it?
I would say 5 days, 5 to 7 days for your shelf life. All this stuff's going to hold really well, and it's going to warm up really well too, especially with the way that everything kind of cooked together. It's going to have a nice blend of flavors that are going to stay good in the fridge. And especially if you're squeezing a little bit of lime over it, the acid is going to act as a preservative as well.
Okay, great. Well, last comment coming in from Salima. She says, can't wait to try this recipe. So with that, y'all, thank y'all so much for coming on Yumlish today, for walking us through this delicious burrito bowl, a very healthy take. I love all the substitutions y'all made, and that's exactly what we're trying to do at Yumlish. We're trying to show that if someone has diabetes, that doesn't mean that they have to eat bland food. That doesn't mean they have to be eating dull food. You can still have your spices. You can still sort of use different types of things, the different tips and tricks that you can incorporate into your daily cooking and make something healthier for yourself. So I really appreciate y'all coming out, spending time with us here today on this Facebook Live event. For those of you who joined us via the Facebook Live, thank you for joining us today. We will be having one more event with this TCU dietetic student joining us in a couple of weeks. So not on a Thursday. We'll have it all on our Facebook. Join us next time, and we will see you then. Thank y'all so much again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.